The 2025 NBA Draft Combine just concluded, and I wanted to give you guys my winners and losers from this year's event. And if somebody has a bad combine, it doesn't discredit what they just did throughout their collegiate career. It just may drop them a little bit in the NBA draft when you look into what happened with their measurements, how well they tested out, and maybe if they played in the games. And this year, there's a big factor as well, because some of these guys can go back to school and maybe even make more money with the NIL and play collegiate basketball. The first winner I have to talk about is Trey Johnson of the Texas Longhorns. We know what the NBA draft lottery is going to be. It's most likely going to be Cooper Flagg at the top to Dallas, Dylan Harper at number 2 to San Antonio, or maybe they trade that pick. But Trey Johnson could be in play for any pick from 3 to 6, and he really helped out his draft stock throughout this year's combine. And usually these top prospects don't do a lot of on-court activities because they know they're going to be top 10 picks or lottery picks, and they don't want to jeopardize that opportunity. But Trey Johnson was one of the best shooters this past season for a Texas team that wasn't so great outside of him, and he carried the team at times, and he shot great at the combine. He shot 68% on all shots that he attempted, and he displayed that quick release, which is going to benefit very well at the NBA level when he's moving off ball screens or maybe in a spot up motion. And everything you hear about Trey Johnson at the combine, he left a strong impression on scouts. He has clean mechanics, he can get downhill, he's very agile, he's very quick in the half court, and throughout the drills you could see how comfortable he is with the ball in his hands, no matter if he's playing in an open gym or if he's in front of the NBA's top decision makers. And I think he's in play now for a top 3 pick in this draft. He could be in play for Philadelphia at number 3, definitely Charlotte at number 4, or Utah at number 5. And I honestly don't think that there is going to be a scenario where Trey Johnson is on the board at pick number 6 in this year's NBA draft. Throughout the pre-draft process this year is Jace Richardson, the son of NBA legend Jason Richardson. And Jace was a very crafty scoring guard out of Michigan State. This year at Michigan State, he was listed as 6'2", 6'3", and the combine measurements were not great to him. He measured out as one of the smaller players at the combine, 6'1.5" barefoot, 178 pounds, with a 6'6" wingspan and just an 8'2.5" standing reach. And for Jace Richardson, who's not a great playmaker and initiator, or at least he didn't display that this past year at Michigan State in his role in that Spartans offense, it is going to be hard for teams to justify drafting Jace Richardson in the top 10 for somebody at his size and for his lack of playmaking ability with the ball in his hands, more so just getting his teammates involved. I love Jace Richardson's tape, and this past year at Michigan State, he was a very crafty scorer at all 3 levels. He can get downhill, he could finish at the rim in acrobatic fashion. But for those teams that are picking around the top 10 in the lottery, he's not very tall, which may dink him a little bit on the defensive end of the floor, and he's not a pass first point guard. So now you have somebody that you may have to play at the 2 sometimes in your offense, and he's going to be 6'1.5" in shoes. That is a big red flag for some teams on the defensive end of the floor. I would still take Jace Richardson in the lottery because I think he's one of the more skilled players with the ball in his hands out of anybody that's going to be drafting in his range in this draft. I think there's still a bunch of teams that could definitely use Jace Richardson's shooting ability, but I do think that his stock took a little bit of hit when you went through the measurement stage at this year's draft combine. Now here's a player that's a similar size to Jace Richardson, Auburn's Tahad Pedifford, who is still in limbo right now if he's going to go back to college or go through the NBA draft. He was 6'1.25" without shoes, so he is shorter than Jace Richardson. He's got a 6'5.5" wingspan, he's lighter than Jace Richardson, and has an 8-foot standing reach. But Tahad Pedifford showed out in the combine game, something Jace Richardson didn't partake in. Pedifford finished that first game with 23 points, 8 assists, and only 1 turnover, and guards can really display their comfortability with the ball in their hands in these combine games. He got his teammates involved, and the jumper looks so smooth. He also went 23 for 30 in the off dribble shooting drill this year at the combine, and I think there's going to be a lot in play for Tahad Pedifford in this draft that doesn't have a lot of scoring depth in this class. Teams like the Miami Heat, the Orlando Magic, the Phoenix Suns, or later in the draft in the Houston Rockets are looking for guys that could just shoot the basketball, and Tahad Pedifford has great shooting mechanics. It's a quick release. There's a decent sample size of him being a positive shooter last year at Auburn, and now we just saw him shoot the ball very well in a game which there's a lot of butterflies, a lot of nerves in this game that you don't want to mess up in front of all these scouts and GMs, and Pedifford showed up right there on the biggest stage. He was definitely one of the more impactful players on the floor in the scrimmages, and maybe he goes back to Auburn, maybe he's going to get a very nice paycheck from them, but I think if he does declare for the NBA draft now, he's a surefire top 40 pick in this draft. Now Pedifford's second game at the NBA combine was not as good, where he wasn't getting the looks that he wanted, and he turned the ball over a lot more, but I think the highs outweigh the lows from him at the combine, and I still think that he improved his draft stock. And we'll stay on the topic of Auburn Tigers. I think Janai Broom was a loser from this year's draft combine. He was 6'9.25" without shoes. The measurements were not kind to him. There was a viral video of his standing reach, and yeah, he's not the greatest athlete in the world. I feel like there was some unfair hate to Janai Broom from from this. And I think Janai Broom is going to be a fascinating prospect throughout this process, just because he was one of, if not the best player in college basketball last year for the Auburn Tigers, where he averaged 18.5 points and 10.5 rebounds. He shot 27% from three. The shooting mechanics aren't bad, but Janai Broom does play at a slower style of pace for somebody that really excels with the ball in his hands. And I think you can question on his fit on an NBA roster, especially using a first round pick on him, because if he's not able to space the floor, I don't think there's going to be a ton of defensive value at the NBA level, given he's not the most agile big man in the world. And he was on the older side playing college basketball. He's going to be around 23 years old when the NBA season starts. So we're pretty much at the peak of his talent right now and what he's going to be at the NBA level. I just think they're guys that are quicker than him, way younger, more athletic, have better ability to switch on the defensive end of the floor, and could be a consistent floor spacer than Janai Broom. So honestly, I don't really think that he's going to be a first round pick in this year's draft. Maybe at the back end, if a team is looking for a NBA ready contributor, I think it may be more likely that he is drafted on day 2 with a second round pick, and it is not a 4-year guaranteed contract. And a massive winner from this draft is somebody that only appeared in 3 college games last year. He's currently committed to Duke and is debating going to Duke, getting a nice payday from NIL, or going to the NBA draft. And that is Cedric Coward, one of the more athletic freaks in this draft. I mentioned Coward on my Just Ballin' podcast months ago about a sleeper for the 2025 NBA draft, and he got on a lot of people's radar when Duke was interested in him in the transfer portal. He only appeared in 6 games at Washington State. He's somebody that also played Division III basketball, and Coward's measurements at the combine were very impressive. 6'5" barefoot, 213 pounds, a 7'2" wingspan, an 8'10" standing reach. Insane versatility that could be on display from Coward at the NBA level. Somebody that shot 40% from 3 at Washington State, 38% from 3 in 2024 at Eastern Washington, and 39% from 3 the year before that. He's a very physical defender that can guard multiple positions on that end of the floor, and for somebody that's 6'6", that has over a 7'2" wingspan at the NBA level, could be a stretch 4 that is also a positive player on the defensive end. And I think there's real talk that Coward, who was maybe debating about being a second round pick or going to Duke, could be a surefire first round pick in this year's draft, and could even be closer to a lottery pick when it's all said and done. I think Orlando at 16, OKC at 15, heck, even San Antonio at 14 could really like the archetype of Cedric Coward to be a connecting piece and a complementary piece on their offensive and defensive side of the ball. And I think Coward has made himself a lot of money if he does end up declaring for the NBA draft. Hey, going back to Duke isn't a bad opportunity either. You're going to be playing for one of the best teams in the country, but you would have to say that Cedric Coward probably helped out his draft stock more than anybody in this range. Another loser, I believe, is going to be Cam Jones from Marquette. Cam Jones measured in at 6'3¼ 202 pounds, with just a 6'6" wingspan. And outside of the spot up shooting drills, he did struggle. He ended up going 20 of 30 in the off dribble drill, 12 of 30 in the mid-range star, 12 of 30 from the 3-point side, and he also left Wednesday's scrimmage with a hamstring injury. Now, I've been high on Cam Jones all college regular season long, and I think he's somebody that can come in and be an impactful player on both ends of the floor and is NBA ready. But I just think when you're looking at the industry consensus right now, a lot of outlets are pushing him down their draft boards, and there's a chance Cam Jones ends up in the second round this year, when I really thought he was a surefire first round pick for most of the college season. And another winner in the big man department has to go with Maxim right now, the big man coming out of Stanford. He had one of the best games on the first day of the scrimmages on Wednesday, where he had 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists in 25 minutes. And another French big man is entering the NBA. He measured in at 7 foot barefoot, 237 pounds, and has a 9'2" standing reach. Very similar dimensions to the Toronto Raptors starting center Jakob Poeltl, and I think Maxim right now is in this second tier of big man in this draft after Sorber, Come On Maliwatch, and Derek Queen. He's in that tier with Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton and Alex Condon at Florida, and I really think he helped separate himself from that pack right now and could definitely be a skilled big man that could go at the end of the first round, where there's plenty of teams looking for some offensive talent at the 5, like the Phoenix Suns, who had big man problems all year long in the regular season. The Boston Celtics may have to trade Kristaps Porzingis this offseason. Al Horford could retire, and they may lose Luke Kornet in free agency, so Maxim right now can be their guy that they could develop at the 5 spot going forward, because he moves very well for somebody at 7 foot tall, and in the modern NBA, he's just another guy that can help you on the offensive end of the floor. I really think he's a big winner from the NBA draft combine. And my last loser here is going to be Colin Murray-Boils, the South Carolina Gamecock. Kind of reminds me last year of Ryan Dunn at the combine, who was one of the best defenders in that draft class, like Colin Murray-Boils, but definitely struggled with his shot on display at the combine. That happened with Colin Murray-Boils this year, as Murray-Boils was solid off the dribble, but just knocked down 7 threes in the spot up drill out of 25, and then just went 10 of 25 in the 3-point shooting drill. And then in the corner 3-point shooting drill, went 11 for 23 either. And that was going to be a big factor in Colin Murray-Boils' draft stock, is how that shot is going to be at the NBA level, because he came in at a measurement of 6'6.5" barefoot. He's got a 7-foot wingspan, which is still impressive, but you don't think that he could be a center at the NBA level. And if he can't really shoot at the moment, there is going to be some restrictions to having him out there with other non-shooters on display. Now, I do think Colin Murray-Boils is a fantastic defender. I think he can guard well on the perimeter and on the interior, but guys are going to be bigger, stronger, and faster at the NBA level. And can you trust yourself defensively to have Colin Murray-Boils at the 5 to go up against guys like Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama, or even Domantas Sabonis or Karl-Anthony Towns? And can you have him out there on the offensive end of the floor if you also have other non-shooters on the floor as well, which would probably be your center out there? But somebody that is 240 pounds at 6'6", I don't think he's a massive loser. I just think there's going to be a lot of question marks on draft night. Do you think you can fix his shot in the long term? And if you can, yeah, he's going to be a lottery pick. And if you have doubts about those questions, he may end up outside the lottery, but he's still going to end up as a top 20 pick in the draft. And I would not feel worried at all using one on him. He's a special defender. Another winner from the draft combine has to be Jir Watkins, the wing out of Florida State. Another player that has a big decision to make. Will he go back to school? Will he put his name still in the NBA draft after the combine? He played every single game for Florida State in 2024 and in 2025 and didn't leave them even with a coaching change. He's somebody that's a 6'7" wing, that's an incredible defender, and he stood out in the second combine game on Thursday, where he had over 17 points and 5 steals in just the first half alone. He looked very instinctive out there. He made the right reads on both offense and defense, and I think he's somebody that could really make a name for himself in the second round this year in the draft, just because the second round is so wide open right now, and he really showed out his skills on display. But that's gonna be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Let me know your winners and losers from the draft combine, or if you disagree or agree with anything I said, let me know down below. Make sure you are subscribed, because I'm going to be dropping my post-draft combine mock draft, and there's going to be a lot of changes for my post-lottery mock given the intel we've heard over the last few days. And then there's going to be a ton of draft content, including collab mock drafts, mailbags, and then my final mock, of course, and my top 30 player ranking. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.